of debates
I think
on that.
my question would be, in deciding whether or not it's fair or ethical or positive to bring this child into the world, when does that decision get to happen? After you're pregnant, or do we make that decision before we have sex up front?
I think abstinence is a flawed way of being anti-abortion, because the reality is a lot of people are going to have sex. A lot of religious people are going to have sex. A lot of, very high moral people are going to have sex. Married people will have sex. People
but that's an is-ought gap. So you're saying because this is true that means that this thing that ought to happen.
I think being pro-choice and wanting to create a space in which people have access to resources that would essentially, in your ideal world, end abortions, could be great in theory, but having the conversation of sex only being something for pregnancy, I think...
No, I don't think it is. I think it's a consequence of
consequence of sex being pregnancy, as in creating a world in which abstinence is kind of the way, is a really hard argument to do, because I just think they do become separate issues, and a lot of people have sex safely.
I don't understand. Why are they separate issues? Pregnancy cannot happen absent penis going in vagina.
Because a lot of people are on birth control, use condoms, and still end up getting pregnant. And I'm not saying that abstinence wouldn't have been the better option in that example.
Right. So the only way to prevent those pregnancies would have been not to have sex.
But I do think to some compound, there are plenty of people who don't have proper education or proper resources.
Oh yeah, they're just not educated. They don't know putting the penis in the vagina leads to a baby.
My junior year of college, a girl told me, she said, I thought you couldn't get pregnant the first time you have sex because you're still a virgin. A lot of people don't have good sexual education in America.
Yeah, I actually totally agree.
That is a huge problem, and I think abortions would be significantly lower if we had better sex education.
I totally agree. We have horrible sex education in this country. In fact, it's Planned Parenthood who writes most of the sex education in this country, and they typically are trying to reach younger and younger and younger audiences by promoting promiscuity and promoting sexual activity. Great example is the the Chicago Public Schools District is now handing out condoms starting in 5th grade in all of your classrooms. So if you are 9 or 10 years old, you can get free condoms in your public school classroom in Chicago as you are being taught sexual education by Planned Parenthood, who then will tell students, hey, it's okay if you guys get pregnant, oopsies.
I just want to be clear that you're saying that you really think that there are people, a lot of people, who just don't know that putting the penis in the vagina leads to having a child. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
I mean, you just gave an example of someone.
I just gave an example of someone I knew personally
so you
who grew
had
up
some
in an inner
stupid friend
city.
who thought that. That's an exception. Most of your friends do not know where babies come from, right?
I think a lot of people who are initially having sex do not have proper sexual education to be
I know
preventative
that.
about
I'm asking you a
sex.
specific question. The specific question is,
I think some people think the pull-out method's 100% effective.
And have most of your friends always known,
but a majority of my friends have access to education.
That if you put the penis in the vagina, it could lead to a baby.
My mom was very religious, and I was not aware of that until I was 16 years old. So,
you weren't aware that putting a penis in a vagina led to a baby until you were 16 years old,
yes,
really?
That is correct.
I think we only have a couple.
And can I get a show of hands at the table of women who are at this table who did not know until they were 16 years old that if a man's penis went into a woman's vagina, that could potentially lead to a baby? Go ahead. Show me the hands. 16.
I thought having sex with a woman 15. You could conceive with, so...
Clearly, we have a larger sex ed problem in this country.
No, but there are, my point is,
you're saying
a lot of
homeschool, so you're saying we should homeschool. Because I guess when you're homeschooled, you might know this. This seems very basic. It's unbelievable to me. So I guess homeschooling would be optimal.
Yeah.
Because then at least children would know that not sticking the penis in the vagina, that leads to the baby. That seems insane to me. I knew that when I was 10. I knew it when I was 10.
Do you think that, like, homeschool parents who are most likely more, like, traditional are really gonna tell their kids, like, give them proper sexual education that isn't just wait till marriage?
Well, they're the most likely, because what they do is
I think that's true, because I think they will and it's completely their right to, but I think they will push an abstinence-only perspective, and that is
Good.
great. Well, let me finish. That's great if the child listens, and if they wait until marriage to have sex. But what happens if...
Because they could fail, they should never try. Great argument.
Gustavo, where did your glasses and hair go? Maddie, help me search for Gustavo's glasses. He will need them leading the charge on the battlefield of love. Sex ed is parents' responsibility.
Yeah, let's just note here that if your criticism of homeschooling is that traditionalists might explain that you should be chaste because a man's penis going in your vagina may lead to a baby, do you think that you could actually accomplish, if you homeschooled your kids, this great feat of explaining to them that if a penis goes in your vagina, you might get pregnant? And do you think that that's actually hard to do in comparison to apparently the public school system, which can't explain to a 16-year-old that this is the case?
Wait, Andrew, can we say P in the V?
Yeah, sure.
P in the V, you know? Just...
How does a 16-year-old, you really gonna endorse the public school system? A 16-year-old doesn't know that that's the case? Another woman doesn't know that engaging in lesbian sex doesn't lead to reproduction? And your whole thing with homeschooling is, but these trads might not explain it? Really?
Wait,
that's the argument?
That's not my argument. I said, what if the kid doesn't listen? And they don't understand.
But that's the same criticism you could apply to a public school. If they could go to a public school and also not listen.
I think we've established that public schools are not successful at it either. I'm saying.
Yeah, so if the criticism then is that it could happen in public schools, which it clearly does. We have two case examples of it happening right here at this table. If that's the criticism, it can happen there and in a homeschooled house. Let me ask you specifically. Is your daughter going to know by the appropriate age that if a penis goes in her, or a P and a V, happens, that she may get pregnant? Is she going to know that?
I have a question.
Absolutely.
There's also
yes.
S in the D.
I have a question.
That. Insane.
Hold on.
It's like
There's
almost
too many
like you could
questions.
teach her that.
Too many questions going on. Isabel does have a hard out.
I'm so sorry.
She
I wish we had so much
Final-
more time to talk about all of this stuff, but I am really encouraged, first and foremost, that we're willing to talk about this stuff that people in positions of power are telling us to never talk about. That is such a signal of hope for me about our generation, and I hope that we can create more opportunities for stuff like this, because I look around this table and despite all of the crazy things that have been said in the chat and a lot of the disagreement and divisiveness, I see so much beauty in the women of our generation waking up to these lies of leftism, be it hookup culture, be it the hormonal birth control pill, we didn't have time to go into that today, or abortion, but even just a desire for something more, right? A desire for marriage, a desire for children and motherhood. I remain really optimistic about the future of this generation, and I'm so grateful for you all being willing to open your heart and your mind to a different perspective. That's very challenging to do in the world that we live in today. And Brian, kudos to you for continuing to do that multiple times every week, because people are really actively trying to halt these conversations to further that division. But I'm grateful for every single one of you.
Can I ask you, Isabel, before you go?
Yeah, go for it.
Doesn't it seem like an absurd endorsement of the public school system if this woman here in the blue didn't know you could get pregnant until she was 16 years old?
My school did not have sexual education at all.
Didn't you have
and
parents? Your parents never told you this?
So I was actually in CPS and dealing with parental custody problems, and now I have two lovely parents who have had extremely open conversations with me about sex and sexuality, and I'm very grateful for that. But I think it is ignorant to say that every individual has the same experience.
So this other state system that you went to also did not explain this to you? So the state has just failed you at every possible level. CPS failed to tell you that that's where babies come from. The public school system
only concept I had of sex was pornography.
And yet,
and pornography
when it
does
comes to
not
homeschooling,
discuss
the criticism just now
childbirth.
was, but what if they don't follow what
Why are you
tell them?
attacking the
Well,
way
at
I
least
was-
they'll
Quick answer
fucking
to your
know.
question,
Holy
Andrew.
shit.
Yes, scathing indictment of the public school system, but it's also the public school system that's teaching kids today that men can get pregnant, and people actually believe this. So much bigger issues happening in the public education system, and I think conversations like this are so important because it just goes to show how truly little actual education is happening within our generation. It's all indoctrination and propaganda. All right, thank you all. I got to jet to the airport.
Hang on. I can't just let you walk there. Hang on. We're almost done, but I got to ask you this. How credible is it to you that inside of a public school system and the CPS and all of these state-run organizations, nobody told this woman that a penis going in the vagina could lead to pregnancy. That doesn't sound absurd.
The public school system
Of course it's
told me
absurd.
that
Absurd.
periods don't hurt.
Yeah, of course it's absurd, Andrew, but sadly, it's not the most absurd thing I've even heard in the last 24 hours.
Sure.
And I think
So
for
then
most
the
people,
indictment here-
they are so unaware of how deep the rot of systemic lies from leftism, authoritarian leftism, have taken over every aspect of civilization in America. The entertainment industry, the
totally
education
agree.
system,
I agree.
media, politics, even the church, right? It's becoming more popular to recite the Sparkle Creed on Sunday rather than understand the tradition of
But wouldn't
religion.
it then be true that if the criticism is, well, wait a second, you could tell your children at a younger age than 16, which is insane, that P to the V might lead to a baby. If you could tell them at a younger age that this was the case, how in the world could that be an indictment of homeschooling, Isabel?
I'm so ecstatic to see homeschooling on the rise, and I don't even think it's labeled as like a trad thing to do anymore. Over 11% of American families are homeschooling their kids, largely after COVID, because we got a front row seat into what's happening inside the classroom. So all incredible things, and that's really the message that I want to leave this on today. Look, again, we can focus on the doom and gloom, apocalyptic, Gen Z is destroying America thing that I think is so attractive and low-hanging fruit, but at the exact same time, and this is what I wrote my entire book about that hit shelves a few weeks ago, you're watching this dramatic countercultural radical movement of young people looking around at every single lie that's being told to us in society, in school, in pornography, on OnlyFans, in the abortion industry, everywhere, that things we talked about tonight, and realizing, we're tired of being lied to. We're tired of empty promises. We're tired of secularism. We're tired of leftism. We want something a whole lot more meaningful. And for all the crazy divisive things that we've said today, I'm so happy to know that every single person sitting around this table wants to get married, and everybody but two wants to be a mom. Those are the types of
Wait,
cultural...
I don't want to get married.
Brian!
I don't want to get married. Hold on, Isabel.
How dare you?
Let's keep you here another 20
You horrible,
minutes.
insane person. No, it's just exciting to see, because those are the cultural changes that we are starting to make on an individual basis that ultimately will impact politics, that ultimately will impact policy. But as Andrew Breitbart is famous for saying, you can't change politics unless you change culture, unless you change how people live their day-to-day lives. And us quitting our birth control, deleting our dating apps, wanting to get married in a culture telling us not to do that, wanting to have kids. We might still fundamentally disagree on a whole lot politically, but I see this as an incredible launch pad and stepping stone into common ground and a future country we're all proud to call home again, that's just based in objective reality on things like where babies come from. And I'm hopeful that our ability to have these difficult conversations makes a better path forward for everyone who comes after us.